Hello, in this video we're exploring Emily Dickinson's I'm Nobody, Who Are You? One of the most popular of Emily Dickinson's poems. I'm going to unpack the poem, analyse its themes, language and structure, and provide a line by line summary. Like all the videos I post, they are aimed at those interested in writing and literature. If you're preparing for an assignment or exam, these videos aim to help you understand and appreciate the poem. Before we start, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, it would be great if you would. It costs nothing to subscribe and keeps the channel running. Many thanks. I have the poem here. Let's start. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name the livelong June. To an admiring bog. Although written in the 1860s, this short poem is definitely relevant and relatable to today's society. In typical Dickinson style, it pokes fun at attention seekers. Here's a line by line explanation and analysis. In line 1, the speaker introduces herself in an astonishing way. I'm nobody, she declares, and then asks, who are you? Using the first person I'm and direct address you creates an immediate bond between speaker and reader, involving us from the start. The speaker's declaration on the surface is self-effacing, extremely modest, and makes an impact from the start. It is also an apostrophe, a language feature where the speaker addresses a person or object who may or may not be there. The use of caesura, here denoted by an exclamation mark, I'm nobody, suggests the speaker is enthusiastic about being a nobody and happy, confident even, to declare this to the world. This bonding between speaker and reader continues in line 2 with the rhetorical question, are you nobody too? Both lines 1 and 2 puzzle and intrigue. We don't know if she is being ironic and playful or what is motivating the question. We wonder if she is addressing someone in particular or a general audience of anyone who reads her poem. The repetition of nobody in the first 2 lines gives us clues that being a nobody is an important theme. As is typical of Dickinson's style, she capitalises nobody, making this nobody instantly important, like there is something special in being a nobody. Indeed, something to be wished for. Nobody, therefore, is used as a proper noun, like it is her first name, and in a manner this defines who she is. The typical Dickinson dashes on this line and other lines infuse the poem with energy. We sense a visceral charge like electricity running through the poem and cannot help but share the speaker's enthusiasm as she warms to her subject. Therefore, the first 2 lines with their 2 questions force us to consider who we are, how we perceive ourselves and how we want others to perceive us. Line 3 strengthens the bond between the speaker and the reader. Then there's a pair of us. It supposes we have answered her question with a yes. We too are nobodies. The inclusive pronoun us and the word pair reinforces this sense of togetherness. This bonding is achieved further through assonance, painting the vowel sounds of theirs with pair, creating a half rhyme. The first notable example is in line 3. Here the R sounds in their and pair. The end stop line emphasizes her happiness that we have joined her. Line 3 therefore creates a sense of solidarity. Nobodies of the world unite. Line 4, don't tell, they'd advertise, you know. Line 4 is an instruction from the speaker to the addressee, imploring the latter not to tell anyone about the fact they found each other. The two exclamations create a sense of whispered excitement. The first half of the line, don't tell, although an imperative, an order, is more of a plea than an instruction for the addressee not to tell anyone. Advertise has puzzled many readers and scholars, and Dickinson's editors even changed this word to banish in some versions of this poem. However, advertise is the perfect word choice. The speaker is likely saying that if we declared our nobody status to others, they would advertise it to the world. If their nobody status were advertised, they would lose their anonymity and become somebodies rather than nobodies. Therefore, advertising here means publicising. The speaker does not want her cherished anonymity advertised. Who they in they'd are is ambiguous, but they are likely the general public, or even a circus or theatre who might place them on exhibition as being somewhat peculiar, almost freakish, as in a freak show, popular at the time. They are freakish because, unlike most people, the speaker and the speaker's friend, they don't seek recognition and fame. This line emphasizes that the speaker is happy to remain a nobody and welcomes anonymity. The caesura, after they'd advertise, stresses she passionately wants to remain a nobody and implies that the reader, addressee, knows the value of remaining a nobody too. The second stanza introduces a shift of focus. It discusses those who yearn to be somebodies and be in the public spotlight. The second stanza subverts the typical wish of many to be famous, especially for Dickinson, writers and artists. Line 5 is therefore startling. Many people who dream of fame are likely astonished by the speaker's negative view of fame and the numerous people who crave public attention. Line 5 is unequivocal, explicit. The speaker says it would be dreary, dull, to be somebody. The two stanzas are juxtapositioned through opposites of nobodies and somebodies. Note how Dickinson places somebody at the line's end for prominence, so they stand out. In the first stanza, the word nobody appears as the second and third words in the first two lines, a sort of visual obscurity, like a nobody. The caesura, emphasised by Dickinson's dashes, work differently than in lines 2 and 4. In those lines, they were used to suggest hushed excitement. But in line 5, they're more like a kind of poetic eye roll, with the speaker expressing weary disbelief that anyone would ever even want to be a somebody. Line 6 continues this theme. How public, like a frog, the speaker argues that being known by the world, the public, is demeaning. Anaphora is used for emphasis. How dreary, how public. By using a simile, like, she compares wannabe somebodies to frogs in June, croaking away in order to court attention from the public. In Frogland, it's often to attract a mate. It is an unflattering comparison and invites us to imagine the frogs' swollen throats croaking for attention. Dickinson conjures a comical image to mock these wannabes. The frogs are attention seekers, seeking validation through the attention of others, desperate for admiration and fame. The analogy of the bloated frog suggests their inflated ego. Look at me, it declares, its name to everyone. But as the speaker says, their noise is one of hundreds, if not thousands, of other frogs, bellowing and croaking in the public arena. Different, yet the same, and in this way, unoriginal. They are but one of a chorus of frogs, all making the same jarring, unattractive noise. Poetry is sound-based, and perhaps the analogy to the sound a frog makes is Dickinson's criticism of some writers, particularly poets, who are more style than substance, like the showy, grating, comical frog. Line 7 continues with the frog comparison. The frog noisily repeats its name all through June, to tell one's name the livelong June. The image is comical and rather sad. Livelong June suggests that these attention seekers spend so much time seeking fame that they never have time to enjoy anything else. They let the beautiful summer days slip away and fail to appreciate the beauty around them. They also disturb the peaceful summer days with their ceaseless noise. So lines 7 and 8 mock the vanity of those who seek public attention. The speaker implies that they are not only loud, but unoriginal too. They are part of a chorus of many frogs, all croaking the same way, unoriginal and uninspiring. In line 8, the speaker delivers a cutting remark, placing the attention seekers in their place while taking a swing at the society of her day. All these frogs only attract the attention of an admiring bog. A bog is a swampy wasteland, wet, dismal and unappealing to anyone who is not a frog. The second meaning suggests that admiration comes from similar pitiful creatures. Think of an echo chamber. Bog with its soft B makes it sound like mob, a derogatory negative term for a group of people. Bog implies the public arena they wish to impress is an intense, smelly crowd of unwashed, dirty people. In lines 7 and 8, anaphora is used, the repetition of to. These make the lines feel repetitive and predictable, exactly the qualities that the speaker thinks the somebodies embody. I mentioned the poem's themes, but now let's examine them in detail. Thematically, Dickinson implies an artist should not seek fame, but write for writing's sake, art for art's sake, a sentiment also contained in Robert Frost's poem Mowing we recently explored. Emily Dickinson never courted fame. She mostly shared a handful of poems with her family and trusted friends. She was also critical of people who clamoured for attention. Perhaps the celebrity culture was not as widespread as today, but it did exist in American society. The reserved Dickinson would certainly disapprove of their attention-seeking antics. Now, let's examine how Dickinson uses poetic devices and figurative language to communicate her thoughts and feelings. In the poem's only instance of symbolic imagery, the speaker compares being a somebody to being a frog. This frog is a public creature, which refers to the fact that frogs announce their presence, essentially tell their names, via loud croaks, while all the other frogs around them do the same thing. This comparison suggests that somebodies, too, like to talk about themselves all the livelong day to other somebodies. The frogs here represent how vacuous and frankly annoying this tendency can be. Frogs all make the same sounds, suggesting a lack of inventiveness and originality. The bog is the public arena, the general public. The speaker compares society to a bog, a type of swamp where all the attention seekers hang out. It isn't a flattering image. Here, the speaker is very much Dickinson, who shuns society, living like a recluse for much of her later years. She seemed not to crave attention as a writer, and hardly any of her poems were published. A greater amount of her work was published posthumously by her family, notably her sister, who realised their merit. Unlike the frogs in the swamp, Dickinson possessed original observations on life and a unique writing voice. Dickinson had something important and interesting to say. The poem uses oxymoron in its very first line. When the speaker exclaims, "I'm nobody," they're saying something that, if taken literally, cannot be logically true. To be a speaker, whether through speech or writing, is to be someone. To say I'm, that is, I am, is to assert your existence. In other words, somebody is saying I'm nobody, which makes this a clever oxymoron. It introduces irony, humour and nuance, because paradoxically she is somebody declaring she is a nobody to the person or people she addresses. The poem is written in the first person voice, giving a feeling of intimacy between the speaker and the reader as they share their thoughts and feelings. Although we do not know who the poem's speaker is, it is reasonable to suppose she holds similar views to Dickinson. In this sense, Dickinson is the poem's speaker. Using contraction, for example, I'm nobody rather than I am nobody, and also they'd instead of they would, gives the poem an informal register and tone, making the poem feel conversational. Dickinson is not criticising fame per se in itself, but those with limited talent who want the world to admire them and will go to extreme lengths to garner publicity. Also the writers who lack substance and deal in cliches, like the chorus of frogs who are all alike. Dickinson may be quirky, but that is endearing, and she certainly isn't cliched, but a unique talent. We never learn who the addressee is, but it might be the reader. The beauty of the addressee's response being hidden is that the conversation between the poem and its audience essentially takes place every time the poem is read. Anyone who identifies with what the speaker is saying can feel that they are the second nobody, conversing with the speaker. We assume that the addressee's reply to the speaker's second question, line 2, is yes, I am a nobody too. It creates an instant bond between the speaker and the reader. The poem was written in 1861, a time of great political change within the USA. America was at the start of a devastating civil war. Perhaps the poem also criticises the politicians and firebrands who clamoured for war with their hysterical rhetoric, which drowned out more moderate voices. These are the noisy, unoriginal frogs who used the war to garner attention. In contrast, the silent majority, those with reservations about the war or who would speak with nuance, are drowned out by the constant attention-seeking others. Now, let's examine the poem's structure, including its form, meter, and rhyme scheme. Overall, the poem generally follows a unstressed, stressed syllable pattern of a dadum, dadum. We would classify it as going back and forth between iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. Still, it never quite settles into something that feels especially regular, partly because of metrical variations and partly due to the use of punctuation. There is an awkwardness to the meter in the first line that pokes fun at the enthusiasm with which somebodies, people who crave attention and admiration, introduce themselves. The caesura halfway through the line and marked with an exclamation mark makes the most probable scansion seem to be, I'm nobody, who are you? Looked at this way, the line stresses the no-ness of the introduction. That is, though the line sounds like somebody telling someone else their name, the stress on no actually highlights the fact the speaker doesn't have a name, or if they do, they feel no need to reveal it. Throughout the poem, all the lines either have 3 or 4 stresses in them. The most regular sounding line is line 7, which is an iambic tetrameter that reads smoothly despite the dash. To tell one's name the live long June. The meter in this line helps create a sense of plodding boredom, which is what the speaker perceives in the lives of somebodies. In contrast then, the variability of the meter in the other lines highlights how being a nobody is actually more fun and interesting than being a somebody. Regarding rhyme scheme, the poem uses, but overall it's too irregular to call it a rhyme scheme. The first 2 lines rhyme, and lines 6 and 8 form a rhyme pair as well. These 2 moments are significant though. The first pair, you, too, helps establish the speaker's sense of excitement and disbelief that they have found a you, that is, an other person, who is also a nobody. It shows a move towards kinship between the I and the you, which is what is required for there to be a pair. Indeed, these 2 rhyme works make a pair, therefore underscoring this sudden, unlikely and exciting pairing. 2 shows that there is now more than 1 in the sense that 2 means as well. So the existence of a you creates a 2. Also the homophone 2 TWO. That it shows that the speaker isn't alone in being nobody. The other rhyming pair is frog and bog. These make an obvious pair because the latter word describes the habitat of the first. Frogs, or the frogs the poem refers to at least, live in swampy bogs. This rhyme subtly reminds the reader that just as frogs have to live in their own bogs, so too do somebodies have to live in unappealing crowds full of other people competing for recognition. Rhyming frog and bog highlights Dickinson's comment about how the majority of attention seekers are talentless, lacking imagination and originality. To support her point, Dickinson rhymes frog and bog to make it seem deliberately contrived and cliched, as one might rhyme moon, June and spoon. This rhyming choice is another example of Dickinson at her most playful, and we sense she had great fun writing this poem. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful and interesting. Please check out my other videos on analysis and creative writing. These include several Emily Dickinson poems. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed, it would be greatly appreciated if you would. It helps me make these videos and to make them more frequently. Also, please hit the like button. If you feel this video has added value to your studies or literature appreciation, please also consider sending me a super thanks or buy me a coffee. The links are below. Please add feedback, a comment you want to share with me, or a question you want to ask me. From me, a super thanks for watching this video. Until next time, write well.